Now, just before I start with compliance, regulation, as a result of having a lot of regulators, in different sectors, the compliance department was created all over the world, actually. Now, what the compliance department does is to actually ensure that the rules, those directives, those guidelines, those laws that are made by these regulators are being kept. The compliance officer in an organization is meant to be a guide. It's meant to be like an advice. It could be he's an advisor. He's an advisor to management, telling them this is this. If you're making a new product, the compliance person must be involved. Whatever you're doing in the company, compliance person has to be involved to make sure that he's one there to make sure that you are not actually going out of line, that the public is actually being protected. That's also for the government right now. It feels you have to have a compliance person who is like a check, who actually checks, the exercise, or who actually checks ideas that's being brought up in an organization. Take for instance, I myself, I work in the bank, so I can tell you that when different products are being put forward in the bank, people create products to suit the customer's demands. Now, when products, services are being put forward, the compliance person tries to know, okay, is this actually suitable? Is this not suitable? Is this actually in compliance with the regulators' demands and the rest? So you see, compliance is actually, that's just one tiny aspect of compliance. Now, we also have compliance where we actually give monthly, because these regulators actually require reports from companies. Some come weekly, some are monthly, some are twice in a month, a lot of reports that these regulators actually ask from the compliance department. And also, they talk about the issue of anti-money laundering. I just want to give a brief intro. I'm still going to read it, but I just want to give a brief intro of compliance as it is. Compliance also in form of anti-money laundering. That's the major aspect of compliance. What compliance helps organizations to do is to make sure that customers, of course, every business aims to please customer, like I say, is always the king. They aim to please the customers because without them, you can't be in business. Now, but being in business does not mean, loving the customer and pleasing the customer doesn't mean when the customer is actually doing something wrong, you wouldn't actually raise an eye. You have to actually raise an eye. If the customer is making a transaction that involves, that's cleaning the money, maybe he actually got money illegally, and then he's trying to store the money or keep the money in the bank or trying to clean the money, but like that's by laundering the money. You have to speak out. It's not only in banks they launder money. They launder money in different. I'm going to actually talk about them. Some of them in different of the businesses. Most businesses, people use them to launder money. Now, as long as you're a compliance person, then you must do away with that customer. You must even report that customer. You must file an STR. That STR means suspicious transaction reporting. You must file an STR. It's important for you to file an STR because when the customer is actually caught eventually, and then you did not file an STR for a company, you will be sanctioned. There are different in Nigeria here. We file STRs as a bank here. We file STRs to the NFI, that's Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. File STRs to them. Filing an STR doesn't mean the customer is dubious or the customer is fraudulent. No, it just means that this transaction is actually suspicious. It's bigger than the threshold. For instance, in the bank now, they tell you, okay, companies that transactions above $10,000. I'm just using dollars for instance, should be reported to the NFI. Does not mean people who deal with let's talk about the oil and gas or any business. You can actually be dealing with people operate legitimate businesses and some people make as much as some people do transactions as much as $100,000, $1 million, daily. You reporting transaction doesn't mean it's actually fraudulent. No, it's just like it's a regulatory requirement that hey, when this person does this transaction like this, report it. But the person can actually be doing a legit business. So filing STRs, number one, is just to safeguard your business. It doesn't mean that the customer is actually going to be harassed or not. No, it's just as long as the person is doing a clean business, it is actually okay to file an STR. So let me just go ahead while we'll still read. Compliance can be said to be the management of regulatory and statutory risks, just like I said earlier. It can also be said to be the state of being in accordance with established guidelines or specifications, or the process of becoming so. Compliance is, let me say some compliance here is It's a continuous process. It's just like a KYC. It's like KYC, CDD, and EDD. I'm going to explain them later on. It's a continuous process. It's like, okay, knowing your customer, for instance. When a customer comes to your system, it depends on the service. I'm going to use the bank, for example. When the customer comes to you, say, okay, I want to open an account. Okay, you do a KYC, you get to know where the customer stays and everything. Now, why the customer is still your customer? The customer can actually change an address. The customer can change address, the customer can change business, the customer can do certain things. So your own now, as a bank now, you're expected to do CDDs. That's customer due diligence. And also you're expected to do EDD, and then you're expected to do EDD, that's enhanced due diligence. That enhanced is like a continuous, it's like a senior brother to the KYC. I'm trying to bring it, just coming out from professional terms now. It's like, it's an advanced form of KYC. It's like knowing what the customer is doing at every point in time. It's a continuous process until you no longer have a relationship with that customer, until your business no longer has a relationship with that customer. It's a continuous process. You do not stop KYC or EDD. You do not stop. You have to keep knowing your customer until the relationship is terminated. So, and that's what gives you a fraudulent-free system. Now, compliance entails adherence to both internal and external rules. Where external rules are imposed by legislation or industry standard, while internal rules are put in place by organizations, businesses to achieve corporate goals. Now, the roles of compliance. Now, some of the rules of compliance, we talk about ensuring domestication of new laws. Compliance now, as it is, usually the government brings about laws are actually usually updated almost every day. Just let me give an example like CBN. They usually bring out laws. Laws change with times. When you see that people are, when you see that times are changing, before the financial system is actually changing, people are getting smarter. People are developing new technologies are coming in place. As long as these new technologies are coming, you have to keep updating your laws so that you can catch up with those technologies. You can catch up with those technologies so that you don't actually create a loophole for fraud to actually happen in the system. For people to use you to actually launder money, or people to use your system to launder money. So you keep, once these laws are coming, you keep getting updated with these laws. That's one thing about the compliance department in an organization. It's important because once they get these laws from the government, they actually, they educate their staffs as regards to educate the management and tell you this is the new law, these are the new laws in regards to, to what's actually happening. And then they try to ensure that everyone in the business, in the organization, knows about these new laws. Also, the compliance department serves as an internal monitoring system to gauge the compliance of an organization with the provision of regulation. Just like the first one, it's similar to the first one. They help to ensure that they help to monitor compliance, compliance of these regulations that are being brought forward by our regulators. Now, also, it helps employees and directors obey the set rules, laws put in place for the safety, stability, and soundness of the economy. They serve as an organization's licensing officer as well as an interface with the regulatory and law enforcement agents. Now, also, let's bring it back home, this issue of serving as a licensing officer. As a compliance officer, actually, let me give an example. In the fintech industry, in the banks or the fintechs, you have compliance officers, if for instance, the FCC has an issue with a bank, the people they come after are the compliance officers. They don't go after the manager or no. The compliance officers are the ones they relate with. Compliance officers are the middlemen. That's why they say the liars and they liaise with the regulatory bodies. Is it the EFCC? Is it the police? Is it CBN? Is it NDIC? We have in the bank, we have lots of regulators, lots and lots of regulators, the FRS and the rest, lots and lots of. So the compliance department are the ones that actually liaise with these regulators, to ensure that we actually check whenever they need things, whenever they want to inquire, because of course the regulators have their own tools to actually, for instance, the bank, they know when a person that they have their tools to discover people who are actually doing transactions that are out of the ordinary. So when the ones that actually get to know, they investigate further by inviting the banks and everything. Now we are obliged by the law. The FCC is empowered by law to carry out investigations as long as it's financial, just like the name, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. As long as it's financial crime, they're empowered by the law. The law empowers them so well to carry out so much. So we as a bank, we're also under we are under the law. So obviously we're bound to obey them whenever they come. whenever they come for us, we're obliged to obey them. Also, it's also in every customer that comes to open an account in the bank, for instance, if you look at the terms and conditions of the account opening form, you would see actually there that when regulatory bodies come to inquire about your account, that we are actually obliged to actually answer them. And then we actually make sure that people read them and then people sign them. Now, I'm not just talking about banks. Forget about this, I'm going to relate it to other businesses. Now, it's not just banks. They're also what they call, I don't know if people have heard about DNFIs, the deposits, the designated non-financial institutions. They could also be, there are different names for them. But let's go with the word designated non-financial institutions. Now, these DNFIs are companies that deals with cash. They are businesses that deals with cash, but they're not banks. They're not deposits. I mean, people don't come to deposit, but they're businesses that deals with cash. Take, for instance, we have businesses like those into real estate. We have businesses like markets, we have hotels, just to say a few. We have NGOs, we have legal firms, there are so many. People who deal with jewelries. These are businesses that people can easily hide cash. People can easily hide stolen money. When you steal money, when you actually collect, when you make money illegally, you can actually hide money into those businesses. Now, by law, those businesses are also, they're also meant to file STRs. The rest of the business you actually do, you're actually meant to file STRs as well, not just banks that file STRs. These businesses are obliged to file STRs as well, because they are businesses that are prone to